We're live. We're rolling. How you doing today, Matt?
Doing well.
Awesome. So, as we were chatting about before, you have a podcast, and so this is not your first rodeo.
That's right. I have a podcast called The Science of Politics that's distributed through the Niskanen Center in D.C., and I am a political science professor at Michigan State in addition to being the owner of Hooked.
That is awesome.
Co-owner.
Co-owner. You and your wife own it together, right?
That's true.
That's cool. She's there right now, I'm assuming, working?
She's at home, but will be there soon.
Okay. How did you get into doing a podcast yourself?
I was asked to do something through this think tank in D.C., and they had some ideas about sort of blogging and things I should write about. And I said, well, what about a podcast? Because that's sort of what I wanted to do. And I had been posting a lot of research links online that people had been interested in. And I just wanted to talk to the authors and try to share some stuff that doesn't usually make it out of academia.
Very cool. And what kind of topics do you discuss? I mean, obviously political science type topics, but is there any like specific niches that you try to stick towards, I guess?
The goal is to apply research to current events. So, for example, we just did a podcast on early voting and how much that impacted the 2022 election. And we just did, and we're doing the next one on the congressional leadership elections, like Nancy Pelosi turning things over to a new generation, and sort of what research says about the role of those actors.
How many episodes have you guys done?
I think we're at 136.
Wow. So how often is it? Every couple months?
It's biweekly.
Biweekly. Okay. Cool. That's really cool. And then you're a co-host on that as well. Or are you
I'm the primary
You're
host.
primary.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Now, are you from the Lansing area? Were you born and raised here?
I am not. I'm from Columbia, Missouri originally, and I moved here from Berkeley, California.
Oh. So how long have you lived in Lansing?
This is our 16th year.
16th. And you've worked at MSU all those years?
Yes.
And I think you mentioned that you're a professor there. You're a political science professor.
I am, but I'm also the director of the Institute for Public Policy and Social Research, which is sort of the outreach to state government. So in addition to more normal academia stuff, I do stuff related to state government as well.
What made you want to get involved in political science? It seems like one of those topics that like there's so much drama, especially now, right? More than ever, there's so much drama just attached to all these different topics. And whether you believe one thing or you believe another, you're almost looked at as an enemy from one side or the other. How do you navigate those waters?
Yeah, it always seems like a lot is going on in politics. When I first started entering, when I did an internship in D.C., I actually got to go see President Bill Clinton's impeachment trial in the U.S. Senate. And it was at that time, it's the first impeachment in 100 years. Crazy things are happening. But in retrospect, it looks like a pretty calm time in D.C. Because things have kept happening. So it is, I think I've always been interested in sort of following the news, but stepping back a little bit and trying to figure out the broader trends and what's happening.
Now, being a professor in that field and looking at things from from an educational standpoint, how do you see it affecting the political climate itself? How do you see it affecting like the minds of young people today? Do you find them getting do you find that they are, I guess I can't even think of the question I want to ask.
Well, there's a bifurcation. Most people are not paying very much attention to politics, and just have other interests and might tune in just a few weeks before the presidential election.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
But the capacity to be sort of hyper involved, to listen to 10 podcasts on current politics, and to follow very closely what's happening in DC. Has never been easier. So we have a group of people who sort of hyper involved, and those tend to be the political science students. So I see them, but it's useful to remember that most people aren't paying much attention. The other thing, because I'm involved in state politics, is that we've had sort of a decline in the local and state political interests compared to the national. So if you,
Why do you think that is?
a lot of it has to do with media, that, you're not reliant on your local newspaper or your local television station for news anymore. Now with cable and the internet, you can get news from everywhere, and most people are kind of attracted to that presidential news. So, for example, more people now know who the vice president is than almost ever before, but fewer people know who their own governor is than before, because you used to just be sort of incidentally exposed to that on a regular basis.
That's really interesting. I would have never guessed that. Now, what are your ideas on I mean, you mentioned how most people know who the vice president is, but like she hasn't made any statements.
Exactly. So we're just paying a lot of attention to national news, and we're getting exposed to that kind of information. Whereas we used to, you had to, even if you were finding out where the garage sales were or looking up the local sports scores, you weren't that interested, but you were sort of incidentally exposed to who's your member of Congress, who's your governor, what are they doing on a local level, and we can't count on that anymore.
Do you focus a lot on local politics? Like teaching it? And
I don't, but that is my wife, Sarah Reckow, is a professor in urban politics and political science. And so her main focus of research and teaching is local politics.
Do you ever find yourself getting overwhelmed with obviously the political climate and just how crazy things are and I mean, because you're kind of in that world, you're surrounded by it like all the time. Do you find yourself getting overwhelmed by it?
Well, I've always been one of the hyper interested people, so I tend not to get overwhelmed. We are overwhelmed trying to run a bookstore cafe and do everything with MSU, but not as a result of the political climate. Things are always happening in politics, and I've always been interested in following them closely.
And then, of course, you always wanted to teach, right? Did you start out? You obviously didn't start out teaching in college, in colleges, right?
I did. I was, both Sarah and I were graduate students at Berkeley at the University of California, and I started teaching when I was there and moved directly to MSU.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
but
really
Sarah
cool.
was a high school teacher before becoming a professor, so she had a little teaching experience of a very different sort in Baltimore.
Now, where did the whole bookstore idea come from? It's a really neat thing. And I remember when it was coming about, I heard about it, I think on the radio or something. And they were talking about how there's this new bookstore that you're going to be able to drink at. And it's never something that really crossed my mind. I mean, you think of like a bookstore, like coffee shop type of atmosphere, but you guys changed the game with having a bar as well.
Well, it is a bit of a national trend. There's probably 25 of these kinds of places, and a lot of them are in college towns. So we're not the first, but it is kind of a rising tradition. For us personally, I would say coffee came first. That is when we moved here. Strange Matter wasn't here. Blue Owl wasn't here. There was nothing but Starbucks and Bigby, basically. And so having moved from California, we imported our coffee, I guess, from personally, and then we sort of missed the coffee shop kind of scene. So we wanted to do that and have for a while, and we went to several places in California that were kind of a combination of a bar and a coffee shop. So you could kind of rotate through the day from cool. kind of the coffee format to the bar format. So we were interested in that. And then we took a sabbatical to Cambridge, Massachusetts. That means we lived there for a year. And the bookstore culture there is just very big and brings in a lot of speakers, brings in a lot of regular events. And so we wanted to bring that to East Lansing and Lansing. And we wanted to kind of combine it with the coffee shop and wine bar.
Do you guys host speakers in different events?
We do. So we tend to have probably 3 or 4 events per week. Most of them are just kind of held at our community table in the front. So, for example, as we're recording, we're having an author today talk about her memoir. We're also having a yarn arts group showing up to do some knitting and crochet. There's a Lansing pagan group that's meeting in the back, and there's a book club that is coming as well. So
all today.
Yeah, so we have quite a bit on our plate, but a lot of it is not organized by us. It's just people see us as a good space for creative things.
So people can just decide that they want to come there and host an event, or there's a
Hopefully
way to sign up for it.
Yeah, hopefully they tell us beforehand. Not always, but yes, anytime people can get in touch with us through our website or stop in. And just make sure that there's not 4 things going on at the same time that you want to have your event, but we'd love to have you.
That is really cool. I mean, there needs to be, because that's one thing. Like in Lansing, a lot of your bookstores. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it since you've been here. Like there was a Barnes and Noble in East Lansing there for a while, and that shut down. And then the student bookstore, like that shut down. I actually know one of the owners, previous owners. And then all these bookstores just keep kind of going out of business. And so I think by adding the wine bar, coffee side, and then allowing these people to come in and host these different events and kind of like be a part of their community and allow their part of the community to come into your guys' business, I'm sure it's really good for business.
It is useful to have the different pieces bringing people in, and hopefully as people are having coffee or wine, they see something in retail that they want to purchase as well. The history is interesting. There was actually a English professor and his wife who had a bookstore in downtown East Lansing, but well before we got here. And they were sort of put out of business by the Barnes & Noble that went into downtown East Lansing. And then that Barnes & Noble eventually went out of business. Schuler Books, which is our main large mall bookstore, had a location at Eastwood, but they've been helpful to us at mentoring us through this process. And they say that that Eastwood location, they did not want to leave. They just lost their lease. The person wanted to put in something else. So yeah, there's sort of in the central part of Lansing and East Lansing. There really hasn't been anything. There's just the 2 big mall bookstores at either side. Now that's when we started planning. Now since we've planned, there's actually 6 or 7 different small bookstores that have been added.
Really?
But none of them are the same size as ours. So there's sort of a rising bookstore culture in Lansing.
What is the process like to start a bookstore? I mean, because it seems so simple. You obviously get books and you just open up a location, but I'm sure there's way more to it. How do you get access to all these books? Is there distributors? Like, how do you do that?
Well, it is kind of a crazy idea to start a bookstore, but it's a crazy idea that a lot of people have. So there's sort of an industry to help. So I actually went to like a bookstore boot camp in Florida with 12 other people who were starting bookstores around the same time around the country. And there's a book you can read on starting a bookstore as well with all of that. But yes, we have accounts with all of the major publishers and some minor publishers and some university presses. So that we can order our books directly, but there's also intermediaries. The biggest one is called Ingram, and they can sort of get almost any book for you if you're not getting them directly from the publishers.
So I'm sure there's got to be a huge overhead cost to that, right?
Well, there's the cost of purchasing the books, of course, is a major part of our costs. So the anywhere, if you're spending $10 on a book, probably $6 of it is going back to the publisher. Of course, there's other expenses just with opening the store and staffing. It's important for us to have a staff that wants to be there, that treats people well, and we do have that. But that means that we do have to have the store staffed, and that's a big expense as well.
How many employees do you have?
There's 17, but that's a little misleading because this is the vast majority are part-time. Okay. And we have a lot of students, for example, working there who are also going to school while they're working there. So there's a lot of people, but many of them don't work a huge number of hours.
That's cool. Do you find that it was difficult to find employees? Because I know that was a huge struggle for a lot of businesses and local businesses.
For us, it was not difficult. We just posted just an ad, and we got like 400 applications before we opened. We interviewed like 40 people or so, and we found a great group. We've had some turnover since then, but not a lot lately. So we've been able to find a good group of people. I would say what is more difficult is no one comes in as an expert in the bar, the cafe,
Right.
and books and retail. So
Right.
we want to sort of make everybody more familiar with all parts of it. But that means that almost everybody is learning something on the job.
So you said you attended these like a boot camp for bookstores. What was that like?
It was really interesting and inspiring to see. We had two lawyers that were sort of changing professions and starting a bookstore. We had we had several people who were starting a bookstore in a small town that did not have a bookstore. So all of that was interesting to see, and you can tell that people really see this as a big part of the community that they're in.
Do you find that since you're in that realm now, I mean, obviously technology is greater now than it has ever been as far as like being able to read and listen to audiobooks. Like I read, but I don't read as often as I should. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but and podcasts. But do you find that there's still a huge need for books, like the physical books?
Yeah, so people can do the new versions through us as well. So we have a partnership with Libro.fm, which is just like Audible but for independent bookstores, and you can get all of your audiobooks through there. And I also listen to audiobooks, and you can also get digital copies of books through our website at hooklansing.com. But most people are still interested in physical books. It's interesting to see the transition. We had this moment when the Kindle was big and everything's going to move to digital, and really that's been in decline for 7 or 8 years now.
Why do you think that is?
The digital kind? The audiobooks are still up, but they started from a small, very small portion. So most book buyers are still print book buyers.
Why do you think there's a decline? Do you think it's because of the other distractions on your devices?
Could be. I think it was just a niche that some people really liked, and then others, just never convinced anyone else that this was like a bad technology or kind of of normal book. A lot of people just still don't see much of an improvement from the Kindle digital version. I think audiobooks are different in that obviously you can experience them while you're exercising or walking or doing something like that. So that is going to attract some people as well. But books tend to attract people who think the book was better than the movie, and don't necessarily want to be able to do some imagination while they're reading.
Right.
And you can do that more easily with the print book.
Yeah, and it's also cool to have the actual book in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I was just telling my wife that I want to have David Goggins. I'm a huge fan of David Goggins, and he just released a new book this week or last week, and I want the actual book, and then I also want the audiobook. And she's like, "Why?"
Yeah, the interesting thing is that a lot of this was about pricing. So when Amazon started the Kindle, they were selling almost most books for $10. But that wasn't because a large part of the book cost is the printing. That's just they were just selling it at a loss in order to get people to buy Kindles. So that's only going to last so long. So long. Right. So whereas for audiobooks, you don't really get them cheaper necessarily because obviously there's an additional production cost to the audiobook. So I think that's an important part of the story of why print books are going to remain in fashion is it really just isn't a large part of the cost, the production of the book itself.
Now, being somebody that owns a bookstore and being a professor and all the other things you do in life, you are obviously really busy. Do you still have time to read?
I do still have time to read, and I also listen to books and do digital, so I do all of them still, depending on what I'm up to, and I tend to be reading in all three formats at once, at least something, just so I can switch to what's available to me at the time. But I also just like to walk around the bookstore. And start picking stuff up. And I always, even though I'm the one who orders a lot of them, I still see new stuff, and I get interested in reading new things as I browse.
What kind of books do you read?
I read almost all nonfiction, but I tend not to read like the straight politics stuff. More, I read a lot of science, psychology, a lot of some nature, but also some current events and history.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, you seem like a real like normal guy for being a professor. Like, I mean, typically when you think of a professor, you think of somebody who's kind of like suit and tie, like kind of uppity a little bit. But I like that you are like you're just down to earth. Like you seem like a normal guy. And I could imagine that being in that realm, where you're in the educational realm, you're constantly surrounded by books, and I don't remember where I was going with this statement.
Well,
But
it does help to ground and not be lost that we do have the cafe. So you're not sort of in the intellectual world the whole
yeah,
time, but you're more directly saying,
that,
okay, what am I going to have to eat and drink?
that's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Like you would think that you would get overwhelmed with that, and I mean, obviously by having the bar, you kind of can let loose a little bit.
You can definitely take a break and do something a little different. But I think it's nice to be introduced to new stuff as well. So, for example, we have a lot of local authors in, and it's almost never a topic that I would have, on my own picked up.
Do you stock local artist or authors' books in your stores?
Yeah, we stock local authors' books, and we have regular events for local authors. And what's interesting is it's almost always interesting when you can meet the person who wrote it, and they can tell their personal stories. So even genres that I don't really read, I'm still drawn to when I meet the person.
Have you met Allison Spooner?
Yes, yeah. Allison, I believe, runs our writing group.
Okay.
So we have a regular writing group the third Thursdays that meets at our community table, and folks can come in. And she usually, I believe, she does kind of a prompt or kind of an opening, and then that also lets people start writing.
She's very good at what she does. She's been on this podcast before too. But yeah, I like Allison. She's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I really enjoy the fact that you allow all these local people to come in, because it offers not just a way for people to come in and buy books and hang out, but a way for people to get an education as well from other people.
That's right. And, I think people learn that there's interesting people in their own community, and that's an important part of what we're doing. But it's also just nice to have kind of a regular event schedule. Our managers would say we might put too much on the schedule, but it's useful to have a regular thing. So something new is happening every day. And we do, for example, we are in the bottom floor of an apartment building. And so, I just want the people who live there to imagine that, if they don't have anything on their schedule, they can
come down and hang out.
Come down and, there'll be something happening.
That's really cool. I've actually never been in there. I want to though. I was just telling my wife that the other day. I really need to go in there, but that's really cool that people that live there can go down there. Like we were in the Meyer the other day, downtown. I was telling my wife, like, how cool would it be to like live here? Essentially, you have like a store inside your home, and I mean it's the same way for the bookstore. You have a bookstore in your home. That's super cool.
Yeah, and we do have some regular customers from inside the building. We're also, in an area just south of Frandor where there's a lot of new apartment buildings. So there's a new student building. There's the Skyview that's kind of a mix. And those people really didn't have much to walk to unless you wanted to try to walk into Frandor. And so we're also, I think, a nice place for people to be able to meet who are in that new region.
And there's other places opening up there. So there'll obviously be a lot of foot traffic as well. Mm-hmm. Correct, right?
Yes. We already have the Tropical Smoothie is open, what do you call it? Like a tapioca balls tea place is open. Old Bag of Nails, kind of an Irish pub fish and chips place is open. There's a physical therapy location. So there's quite a bit there, and it's a very unique space because but right behind us is a new building for retired people. On to the side of us is a building entirely for students, and then our building is more of a traditional mix of apartment dwellers. And then, the whole project was sort of an environmental project to try to deal with the runoff from Frandor, not getting into the the Red Cedar River. So in behind us, there's also two new lake retention pond lakes. There's new trails that connect to the river trail. There's a new amphitheater that they're putting in for events. So it should be a mini little region for people to explore.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool to be a part of the community in that aspect, right? To be able to own something that is like essentially a staple in the Lansing community. What does that feel like?
It is, and a big part of why we chose that location is it's right on the border of Lansing and East Lansing. So we're in Lansing, but we get a lot of traffic from East Lansing and the university too. We're walkable to the university. You can walk right through Brody on a path to get to games or whatever from our spot. And we have a little art in back that was done by a local muralist with a little hint of Lansing on one side and East Lansing on the other, and the river in the middle. So you can sort of see that combination. And we had representation from the mayor of Lansing and representative from East Lansing when we opened, and still have representation from both cities. And from my point of view, because a lot of what I do at the university is to interface with state government. And to try to remind people, it's only 3 miles away. It's a very big part of our region. And for those of us who are, interested in government and politics, there's a lot going on in town. So we've been able, I think, to do some merging of those two communities that you wouldn't normally see.
That's actually a really good point, because for the longest time, Frandor was almost like it was so weird, because you were in Lansing, but then there was like a clear boundary of East Lansing and Lansing, and it seemed like there was like a divide, like some sort of weird like okay, this is East Lansing and this is Lansing. Like they're clearly two different locations. But now, like that whole section where your bookstore is, it's like you had mentioned, it kind of merged the area together, and so that's kind of cool.
It has, yeah. And Lansing, as you know, kind of has an interesting culture where people are very proud of living here, but they can also make fun of themselves. And so we sell Frandor shirts and mugs and cards and stickers, and we sell a lot of those. We sell a drink called the Big Red Orbs, which is kind of a holiday drink to celebrate the ornaments in downtown Lansing. We sell a Frandorf sandwich. That's sort of our take. We have some of the Lansing Facts T-shirts that have the Sears Tower on them.
That's cool.
So there's a lot of
local stuff.
We try to take advantage of that. That people really do. We have the Love Lansing stickers as well. People do love Lansing, but they also don't take themselves super seriously here, and we hope to embody that.
Yeah, no, that's one thing by doing this podcast. I've met so many people, because I've interviewed a lot of like local artists and local business owners, and they all are super proud to be part of Lansing. And before I started doing this podcast, I didn't realize it. Like I was one of the people who are like, man, Lansing's so boring. I hate Lansing. But then like as I started getting more into the community, you realize that there's so much more. There's always events going on. There's people who are trying to make the community a better place for everybody. And like such as your business, like you are obviously trying to make East Lansing better and Lansing better by hosting these events, allowing people to come in. You are providing a service, not just a bookstore, but a place for people to kind of come and hang and drink and talk and hang out.
That's right. And we do have local arts and cards and stickers and everything like that as well. So we try to have some local products, but also, to also bring in some things that, you might be used to seeing more in a larger city, where you have this kind of combo of retail and cafe space. We try to make that part of Lansing.
Now, having the bookstore, has it made your life more crazy? Do you find yourself like just busy beyond belief?
Well, we are very busy, but we have competent management and staff. We knew that we were only going to be able to do this if we, didn't do it on a day-to-day basis, and we're available sort of solely for the emergencies and the difficulties and the ordering. So I still have some things that are clearly on my plate, but because we have management and staff, we can still, leave the area, and it is still,
that's nice.
Things still proceed. That makes it fairly impossible to make money as a business venture. But that was sort of a known trade-off that, if we're not going to be there all the time, then we're going to need to hire people who can be. And that's going to mean that it's profitability has to be secondary to,
Right.
to making it work.
That's very cool. I mean, I think that's for a lot of people, that's a difficult thing to want to do because, for one, you're kind of giving up control a little bit. I mean, you're not there to micromanage things, and then you're also losing that profit, aspect of things as well.
My name is Lauren Harrington. I'm a real estate agent with Century 21, Lemac Realty. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your home, I can help. From the big cities to the small towns and anything in between, I can make your home buying dreams come true. Come join the Century 21 family. Contact me anytime at 989-534-6430 to begin the process. I look forward to hearing from you.
Sounded good.
Yeah, and it's a privilege to be able to do this because we do have jobs that enable us to do it and to take on a new venture that is not going to make money from the beginning.
Yeah. Now, being a business in the East Lansing area, what is your take on the way things are going in East Lansing? Do you think that things are growing, getting bigger? Like, what is your opinion on that?
Well, we think Lansing and East Lansing are both doing well. There's a lot of new things happening. We're happy to be part of it. There are some interesting local institutions as well. We've been privileged we're kind of on the marketing campaign for MSU FCU because they've been kind of promoting us as a business client, and people don't know they do business work. But
I've seen that.
Yeah,
you guys posted something about that.
It's kind of an example of there are local institutions that are still big and capable of doing these things, but still have a local touch. So we like that, and also that we have some local vendors. We have. For example, we have products from Sweet Encounter Bakery downtown. We have products from Social Sloth, which is also downtown. We have, we're able to have a bunch of products that draw from the local area.
Now, do you guys go around and select these local products, or do these people come to you and want to offer to sell it in your store? How does that work?
Most of these have been there from the beginning, where these were places that people we already knew and places that we already went. And so, we knew we wanted to include them in the store. Some people do come to us, but it's nice to be able to select those things from the beginning.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I really like going to places like I just mentioned. We were in the Meijer downtown. And anytime I go to a place that sells local products, I find myself spending way more money because I'm like, that looks really good. I want to support them, or I know them. I want to buy that. And so I find myself spending a lot more money. But like at the Meijer downtown, I was like, man, this is really cool that a place like Meijer would sell all these local products.
Yeah, and actually because of that, some of the local people have they're able to kind of survive. So there's definitely several people where Meijer and us are both on their route. And, they couldn't have a business that only relied on selling stuff at Hooked, but because there are some other places that buy locally, they can.
That's one thing that I love about the smaller businesses in Lansing is that, I would say you guys' business is probably a little bit bigger than some of the other smaller businesses that I've had on like the podcast, but everybody's so supportive of everybody's business. And it's so strange because like when you think of business owners, and like, for instance, the whole Saddleback thing, I don't know if you've followed Saddleback helping out, the Capital City, barbecue place. Like those people you would think would be in competition with each other, but Saddleback helped them out, and now I think they're doing better. But it's so cool to see these businesses support all these other businesses, regardless of competition or whatever, because they know that if you do well, they're going to do well, and so it's not like a famine mentality. It's really cool.
That's right. We actually entered a business competition last year for downtown Lansing. It was run by Downtown Lansing. And all 5 of the finalists in that, we didn't win, Sweet Encounter won.
Okay.
But all 5 of the finalists, including us, are now open. They're not all open in downtown Lansing. They're kind of spread out a little bit. But it's just been nice to see.
What was that event for?
It was run by Downtown Lansing to sort of just a new business venture competition. We were happy to be part of it. And even though we didn't win, we still know those other folks, and they've now opened, which was nice to see. But also, I think people sometimes misunderstand what the dynamics of competition look like. Like I said, we've had support from some of the other bookstores in town. We also even the kind of history of coffee is interesting. So, Starbucks, everybody thinks, well, Starbucks is putting a bunch of independent coffee shops out of business. Well, Starbucks created the independent coffee shop market, addicted a bunch of people to daily lattes, and now they're branching out. So, I think there's room for people to have to patronize different places, but also to say that I want to look out for finding someplace local that's a part of the community.
Yeah, and I think as time goes on, people start to realize, people don't want to support places like Starbucks because they're these multi-billion-dollar companies and they have no interest in these local communities, whereas they want to support something like Strange Matter or Blue Owl, whatever some of the other coffee shops are. They would much rather go there because then they know that for one, they know they're supporting a local business, but then they also know that their money is going towards somebody's life, or it's providing for somebody in a sense, because a lot of these businesses give back to the community too.
Yeah, and we started this as consumers, so we went to all of those places, and we're happy with some things that we saw and wanted to use as models, and yes, we are part of that trend where the goal and the likelihood is not that we open a bunch of locations and become big and
do you see yourself opening other locations?
No. This is this is a venture to kind of give back to where we are, and because we're going to be here for the long term, and we want to have a place and make it better. So I think that people can feel good about patronizing these local places that have made Lansing better. We also arrived in Lansing right after the Great Recession, and there was a lot closing down. There was a lot of empty retail space. And so it's just nice just to see a renaissance of sorts of local places. And our place is still a little up and coming because, it's still part of this in between Lansing and East Lansing. But I think it's rising and a useful place for that merger to happen.
It's really interesting because after COVID, it seemed like there was a lot of local businesses opening. And I don't know if it had anything to do with the money that people were given. They're like, I'm just going to invest this into starting something. Is that around the time you guys started your business?
Yeah, I would also say just planning time.
Okay.
If while this is going, you start thinking about, well, what do I want to do? If I've had a dream for a while, how do I bring it into fruition? For people who might be interested, the Lansing Community College is the home of the Small Business Development Center, which is a free series of courses that you can go to with any idea, and they will actually help you write your business plan.
Oh, wow.
So folks can check that out, and I did that. That was sort of my first step in coming back from sabbatical. To get this moving. And then COVID happened right after those initial first steps. And so I was able to kind of just ruminate with the plan and the ideas for a while. And in order to make that happen, I think a lot of people did do that. And that's why, for example, those 5 finalists in the downtown business competition all made it in some form.
So they all went to the LCC thing?
No, they didn't all
they all ruminated on it.
I think they all sort of benefited from the pandemic has happened. We
Right.
want to make a change and use that time to start a new venture.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to see all these local, small, newer businesses doing well and flourishing. What are your goals as a business owner for, like, let's say the next 5 years?
Well, first, of course, we do want to survive and become become a ongoing concern that can be open. We're open 80 some hours a week. So we want that part to work. We want it to work as a coffee shop. We want it to work as a bar. We want it to work as a bookstore, and of course, an event space and all of the things in between. So I'd say that's our kind of primary goal. I think we've been able to enact our vision in terms of what the space looks like, what kinds of products we have, and what kind of events we have. I think the question is just, can all of that come together and kind of keep going and keep getting support in the community. And so far so good, but we have a long ways to go. I also think we have an aspiration to create a bit of an intellectual culture in Lansing, to kind of draw from the university, but not all be, just students or faculty. And so, what that might mean is, hopefully, you'll run into a history professor that's recommending a series of history books. Or we'll have a graduate student that's working on a research project and has a list of recommended books, and that you can meet. We also have in-store book clubs, coffee and wine clubs as well, and we really want
wine clubs.
Yeah, so folks can get a couple wines per month that are hand selected, then can come in and do tastings as well with us. We have a regular, so the book clubs, that's an important part of kind of our vision, is that people actually meet in store for their own book clubs, but also for the store book club. So we have a book club for kids, we have a book club for YA, we have a book club for adults. And that means that people get a book a month, but that they also come in and discuss it at the end of the month with other people in the club. And, we were recently on the list in the finalists for like hangouts for your individuals, hangouts for seniors, and hangouts for students. So we liked that in that, we're not a place that's just for one type,
right.
But that can kind of merge these communities in Lansing. And one of those ways is through the book club and the coffee club and the wine club. And we want to get those, solidified and get people regularly participating there. We also have some weekly events. So we have a Wine Wednesday special, and an associated cheese tasting, and then a dessert tasting. We have specials for teachers and students on Fridays. On Tuesday, we have a unique event at 5 called a Parent Happy Hour. And what it is it's just wine specials for parents while there's a reading going on for children. So the parents can have wine while the kids are entertained by a kid's reading every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And so I think a big part of our goal is making each one of those things kind of get a regular crowd. And we've had some success, but I think, that's the kind of thing that could really get going. And then you have a group of parents that are regularly there on Tuesday and maybe meet new people through that as well. So I think another aspiration is that people actually meet each other through the store. They actually, develop a community of people who like similar things.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's the best part about a community, is having this place that you can go. I mean, because like for the longest time, it was libraries, right? People would go to libraries, hang out, and there'd be like a mixed culture there. Kids and moms and dads and of all ages. But now, I don't know anybody who goes to the library. I don't go to the library. I have the library on my phone. That's where I listen to a lot of my audiobooks.
We are still supporters of both the Lansing Library and the East Lansing Library.
I like libraries. I'm not saying I don't like them, but I don't go to them because we have it on our phone.
But yeah, there is also, that you get a different kind of aesthetic and a different kind of space when you can also have a coffee shop there or a bar there. And so that's obviously something that you can't do in a library. So you get a different a different group of people.
My wife and I were talking the other day, because it was interesting. Back in the day, you used to have to go to the library when you wanted to research something. You'd have to go like look up the book and go find the book and then dig through a book and find the pages to do any kind of research project. And now it's like you can just do it on your phone. You don't need a book.
Yeah. What we're taking advantage of is people still like to be in a space, though. So, we have a lot of people who are working on their laptops or their phones while they're in the space, but they still value, okay, there's other people around. Right. I'm not doing it all on my all on my own. So I think that's a useful part of being in a space like this.
Well, that's what I liked about libraries too, is because you knew when you went there it was quiet, and you could just, when you're there, you're focused on whatever it is that you're doing. And you can't get that in a lot of other places. So like a place like yours as well, I'm sure it's same atmosphere, quiet and kind of calm.
It depends on the time of day. So yes, we have a lot of, right now we're in the middle of final studying, so there's a lot of people in there taking advantage of it as a workspace, and we encourage that. But it does get a little louder as we have events, or for example, we also have games that people can play. So if you want to play Jenga or Monopoly or Scrabble or whatever, we have those games available while you're drinking.
That's very cool.
You can play that as well.
How big is your store?
It's 3,000 square feet, including the backspace. So it doesn't quite feel that big, but I think it's going to feel substantially smaller than like a Schuler or Barnes and Noble, but substantially bigger than any of the other bookstores in town, because there really is space, and a lot of it is integrated with the cafe.
How hard was it to integrate the cafe portion to the bookstore? I mean, because I would assume that's almost like a whole business in itself, like finding the suppliers and the kind of wine and all that stuff that you want to sell.
Absolutely. So we're in 3 different businesses, and we have to kind of learn them all at once. And that's why we need to rely on people who've done more of it than we have. But these are all businesses that amateurs get involved in and can succeed in. So we're lucky for that. I would say our space is way more integrated than most of these. So there's a lot of bookstores with a cafe in them, but they're usually kind of a separate
that's how
space,
Schuler's is.
Separate business. Even the staff are separate. Whereas for us, we really want to make it integrated. So your barista also has staff pick book recommendations in the back of the store. Might also be helping with one of the events. Your bartender can also help you find the best book of a particular type, and I think that's important for us. Not that we don't have any specialists, but that people are kind of integrated in that, and physically, that the space is integrated. So we have tables going back into the books section, and vice versa. There's books right when you enter in the cafe section as well. We sell a lot of books on food and wine, of course, as well. We also have wine bottles, so it's a little wine shop as well. And that's
did you guys have to hand select each bottle of wine?
So that was the fun part, right? You get to taste wine. So it's true. The wine process really is that you go and have everybody taste them and decide what you like. Of course, you do, research online, find out what else people are doing, but a lot of it really is, hand selecting by tasting a lot. So that was the fun part of getting started.
Where'd you go for that?
There's about, I'd say 5 or 6 distributors in Michigan that don't have a lot of distribution at like a Meyer or Costco, and so it's not going to find the same kinds of wines that you would find there. And that was kind of our goal, not to kind of replicate what you would find in a store, but stuff that's a little harder to find, but still cover the world, cover the varietals. So we're able to do that. We also have wine flights, which are very popular, so people can taste 3 wines at once. Coffee flights are actually surprisingly popular. People now, I originally envisioned this as, because I'm I drink pretty straight coffee. So I envisioned this as, okay, we're going to have some beans from Kenya and some beans from South America. And there are some people who want to do that, and we do have pour overs. But people like their sugar adulterated coffees too. So a lot of like what we're having now, we have flights of of different flavors for the season. We also have a cocktail flight for the season as well. But yeah, we plan to be a place where people can taste and decide what they want, and that's enabled by these flights.
How did you select the coffee, different coffees? Did you have to go through a distributor for that as well?
Yeah, so coffee is the one place where we decided, okay, we need to make this a little bit easier by kind of making a standing decision of who we're working with. And so the coffee company that we work with is called Intelligentsia, and they are out of Chicago. And they are kind of they were in the first wave of the direct trade high-end coffee beans. So they have these long-term relationships with farmers all over the world, where they import the beans directly and then can make either blends or single origins out of those direct relationships. And this was our favorite coffee place, and so we wanted to bring it here. But it has also meant that at least one part of the business doesn't have 50 vendors, but has, a stable group that still offers a lot of variety in terms of types of coffee. And our, just our regular brewed coffee is pretty high end compared to, most of the beans you're gonna get. And every bean that comes from Intelligentsia is, going to be graded in the top 10% of beans in the world, and some of them quite a bit higher.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of coffee, and that's something that recently I've been going through a whole process of trying to find coffee that I actually like, and it's been brutal because I like black coffee. I drink everything black, but I don't like super sweet, and I don't like I don't know, like there's different flavors I had I think a French vanilla the other day, and I drank it black and it was just too sweet. And so the whole process of finding coffee, I realized that I appreciate the taste of like black coffee and just like the actual taste of the beans.
Mm-hmm. Well, you should join our coffee club. We have
you have a coffee club.
Yeah, so you can come and you get 2 hand-selected bags per month, and it also comes with 10% off all coffee drinks in-house as well. So those are going to both be single origin, higher-end coffees, but will allow you to kind of tour the world over the course of a few months and see what kind of beans you like. You can also always come in and get a pour over of a whatever we're featuring that month as well, which is always going to be a single origin coffee.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to promote or talk about real quick before?
Well, I think that wine is a big part of what we do. So we haven't gotten a chance to talk a lot about that, but we have 9 flights, I think, right now that you can choose from. So you get 3 different wines to taste of those. And part of the model is, people don't necessarily have to be wine connoisseurs. We can take any hint. I normally like sweet red wine. I normally like, wines from Argentina, and we can kind of go from that to help you define, what you like more. And a big part of that is, you can taste it. So, we're always going to have, like I said, we have the 9 flights. We have 30 probably wines by the glass that you can get at any given time. So you really can taste around and figure out, what you like the best. So we do have beer and cocktails, but we do want to specialize in wine, and we've made that happen as well.
I mean, that's kind of the lure of going to like a winery, right? Is trying these different wines. And so by offering that service to people can kind of develop or find out what they like and hope. Can they buy the bottle from you?
Yeah, and now every wine that we have in the flights or by the glass is also available to purchase in a bottle. And we actually have deals if you want to buy all 3 bottles that you tasted in the flight. We have a bottle flight that you can take home as
very
well.
Cool. That's very cool. Cool. Is there anything else? There's a lot of information. You gave me a lot of information. I'm like,
Hopefully people will come by and try it. We're at 3142 East Michigan Avenue in Lansing. So it is just south of Frandor on Michigan Avenue. So we're on the East Lansing side of 127, but still in
Can't miss it.
Lansing.
You can't miss it.
And there's parking in back. It's funny that we still, probably the number one question we still get is there a place to park? And if you look at it from an overview, like from an aerial, you'll see nothing but parking. So there's plenty of parking, but for those concerned, you can get directly reserved spaces, and there is a back door to go directly from the reserved parking spaces. But there's also parking right alongside. If you come by, give us a try.
Do you guys have a patio in the summertime?
Yes, we have a patio, and obviously we took stuff away, took the table and chairs away. But yeah, it actually is going to end up. It actually seats about 40 in just outside, so our space expands quite a bit when people can sit outside, and obviously that's helpful for the wine drinking and everything like that as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this. This was fun. I'd like to have you back and maybe just learn a little bit more about you. We talked a lot about your business, but yeah, I think it's very important to have a place like that, and I think it's so important and cool and I love the fact that like a local business like yours supports other people in the community as well. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you spreading the word on everything that's happening locally.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.